Hello and welcome to another Froggy Friday. My name is Tuppence and I have got my different frog mould out. This is my rude frog. He's making a pretty rude gesture and I want to turn him into a Santa frog. So I'm going to have to disguise that in some way. I'm going to be making this out of Aqua Cast. I've got 100 grams of powder and 35 grams of water. Just plain tap water, and normally I like to mix the powder into the water. But because this is the bigger pot, I am going to tip the water into the powder. I just find it mixes better the other way, but it still will work this way. So I just need to make sure that I get rid of any of the lumps. So I'm going to give this a quick mix. Now I've probably put a few bubbles in there, so I'm just going to tap the cup and help to bring those bubbles to the surface. And it's also brought a little bit of powder. So I'm just going to mix that. There's a little ridge around the bottom of this cup, so sometimes it gets stuck. I'm going to make a spout on the edge of my paper cup because I need to pour this through that hole that's going to be the feet of the frog. And I'm only going to part fill this. Then I can give this a good squeeze, make sure that I get all of that eco resin into the bottom of the mould and displace any bubbles that might be in there. So I'll carry on topping this up, squeezing again as I go. This is a super soft squidgy mould. So it's pretty easy to squeeze, but it's also really bad for your mat. That's why I've got that on a plastic sheet. Otherwise it will ruin your mat. And being soft does mean that it's really easy to demold, but it also means that it's particularly floppy. As you can see, it waves around. So it's pretty easy to knock over. So I'm going to carry on filling up the mould, and then I'm going to leave this to set for a good couple of hours, and I'll be back when I'm ready for demold. Okay, this is all nice and set. It's completely cooled down and I'm ready to get this out of the mould. And because it's super stretchy, you can just roll this back. Just need to be careful of where that arm is, but it comes out pretty easily. And there he is. He's complete with his little butt. And it's looking pretty good. No bubbles that I can see, but I do want to get rid of this section. So I've got a small electric drill and I'm just going to file that bit away. And I have spared you the noise because it really sounds like a dentist. I'm also going to use a nail file just to tidy it up. And now he's got his 2 feet to stand on. Okay, now I have my base frog and he's looking pretty good, very few bubbles. So now I need to turn him into a Santa. And to do that, I'm going to use some air dry foam clay. I'm going to keep it white and I'll paint it all afterwards. So I just need to pull off a small amount. And I'm going to roll this into a worm. So I'm just going to roll it on the table underneath the palm of my hand. And that way it stays nice and smooth and I don't get any ridges or bumps in it. So I'll just keep rolling it until I get it the length I want. And actually I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'll carry on rolling it out. I didn't really need it quite that thick. Alright, that should be long enough. So now I can join this onto the body. And the frog has already dried for over 24 hours. So I'm going to put a little bit of bookbinding glue along the middle of the worm and spread that out with my fingers. This is just going to help it to bond onto the Aqua Cast. And I'm going to cover up his cheeky little bottom. Make sure that that sticks. And then I can bring this around the body. It's going to go across that hand, so do I want to chop it there? I think I might chop it there and then I can make it look like it's coming out the other side. It's really right on the edge. No, I'm going to leave it actually because I think I'm going to be putting some mittens on, certainly on the other hand, to disguise that finger. So I'll need to put a mitten there as well. Right, I'm going to carry on bringing that up, and this is going to be the fur trim around his coat. I'm just going to slice that off at an angle and then I'll do the same and bring the rest of it around as well, adding a little bit more glue. And then I can gently push this, curve this round and bring it up alongside that other piece. And now it does look like the fur trim. Looks like he's got a coat on. So this will take a little while to set, but not too long. I mean, the clay itself is going to need to dry out, but the bookbinding glue is pretty quick. It takes about 15 minutes before that sets. So just push that back into place. Okay, that's not looking too bad. I think it already looks like he's got his coat on. I have, however, squished it back a little bit, so I need to make sure that I don't put that down on the table. I'm going to stand it up and let that clay harden off a little bit. Now I'm making another small worm. He's going to need some cuffs. So as I am building this, this is part of Froggy Friday, which is a weekly collaboration that is brought to you by Lisa, Girl in the Garage, Karen, The Dragon's Cave, Loula, Nerd Goblin Art, Gert Creates, and Tim, Bass Resonator. Please check my description box below for a link to the playlist. Most of what I'm going to be doing now is pretty self-explanatory, so I am going to stop talking. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of music, and you can watch as I build Santa Frog.
Down by the pond where the lilies grow, in the shimmer of the first soft snow, lives a frog with a twinkle bright, putting on his red suit tonight. He buttons up with a tune so sweet, tiny boots upon his feet, spreading cheer with a ribbit song to friends who've needed it all along. Santa Frog is hopping through the night, bringing joy in the pale moonlight. For the fox and the finch, the mole and the deer, he's wrapping up kindness and holiday cheer. No matter your shell, your fur or your feather, we're all at our best when we hop together. He slides down reeds with a merry cheer. Peace to all, enjoy this year. The turtles smile, the crickets chime, even the owl keeps perfect time. No one's too small, no heart too cold, for love's a gift more bright than gold. In every splash and every song, he teaches that we all belong. Santa Frog is hopping through the night, bringing joy in the pale moonlight. For the fox and the finch, the mole and the deer, he's wrapping up kindness and holiday cheer. No matter your shell, your fur or your feather, we're all at our best when we hop together.
The mould has some lines that mark his stomach, and I really don't want them to be here. It's going to spoil the fact that this is meant to be a coat. So I've mixed up a little bit of Das air dry clay with some water to make a paste or a putty. And I'm just going to use my silicone tool to spread that in. I'll slightly overfill this. I'm not going to worry too much if it looks messy. Once this is dry, I can sand that back. It should be nice and smooth, and once I've painted it, you'll never know that those lines were there. I'm using a brush to get rid of any of the dust, and now I'm ready to start painting this. And I'm going to give it a coat of gesso primer because I'm using foam clay and Aqua Cast. They are different textures. So I'm going to give this a stir, and then I can coat the whole thing with a couple of layers of paint. And this will give it one base coat that is the same for the whole thing, and it should accept the acrylic paint nicely. So again, I'm going to speed up, pop some music on, and you can watch me paint the frog.
Down by the pond where the lilies grow, in the shimmer of the first soft snow, lives a frog with a twinkle bright, putting on his red suit tonight. He buttons up with a tune so sweet, tiny boots upon his feet, spreading cheer with a ribbit song to friends who've needed it all along. Santa Frog is hopping through the night, bringing joy in the pale moonlight. For the fox and the finch, the mole and the deer, he's wrapping up kindness and holiday cheer. No matter your shell, your fur or your feather, we're all at our best when we hop together. He slides down reeds with a merry cheer. Peace to all, enjoy this here. The turtles smile, the crickets chime, even the owl keeps perfect time. No one's too small, no heart too cold, for love's a gift more bright than gold. In every splash, in every song, he teaches that we all belong. Santa Frog is hopping through the night, bringing joy in the pale moonlight. For the fox and the finch, the mole and the deer, he's wrapping up kindness and holiday cheer. No matter your shell, your fur or your feather, we're all at our best when we hop together. Some creatures croak, some squeak, some sing, but all have hearts that warmth can bring. If you listen close when the stars appear, you'll hear him whisper, love lives here.
I'm waiting for the paint to dry on my frog, and in the meantime I've got a grater, and this is a piece of dried foam clay. I'd mixed a little bit of glitter in with it, and I wanted to see what it looked like in the mould. So I'm going to use this to create some snow just by grating this. It doesn't take very long to do, and you end up with tiny little granules that look a lot like snow, especially as it's got the glitter in it as well. Yes, you can buy bags of snow. I don't really want a lot of it, and I want it right now, so rather than throwing these pieces away, I thought I would try this, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. I need to make a bobble, so I've got my little pile of snow and I've got some fresh foam clay, and I'm going to make a kind of pom-pom for his hat. So I'll just make a round ball, and then I'm going to put that in that pile of snow and roll it around. It kind of looks like desiccated coconut really, and it will stick to that fresh clay. Now I can take a little bit of glue, and I'm going to put that on the end of his hat. And then I can push this pom-pom onto the end, and it should stick to the glue as well. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit with a brush. And then I can sprinkle on some more of that snow, and it's going to stick. And now it looks like a pom-pom. Alright, it is time to get rid of that rude hand. I think the easiest way to do that is to disguise it by covering it with a little bit of clay, and I'm going to make this look like a mitten. So I'm just shaping that ball around the hand, making sure that it is covering all of those fingers. And then I can use a microbrush stick to separate the two pieces to create a thumb. Just make it look a little bit more round. And now you'll never know how rude he was. He's going to need some boots, so I'm going to paint those on. I didn't want to put any extra clay or anything down the bottom of his feet because that would just make him unsteady. So I'm going to simply use the paint to give the illusion of the black boots. Once I've gone all the way around and they're dry, I can add some clay to the top to give him the cuff. I've made a very thin worm. I'm going to cut that into two. In the same way as I've done before, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, and then I will wrap the clay around. I'm going to use a craft knife to cut off the excess where it joins, and then I can just neaten that up. So now I just need to do the same to the other side, and then I can leave those to dry. Now my frog needs something to stand on, and I'm just waiting for him to finish drying. I'm waiting for the hands to dry. I've added another mitten on the other side, and I'm still waiting for the cuffs. Once they're a little bit drier, I can pick him up and move him around, and I'll be able to paint the eyes, and he's definitely going to need a beard, and I also want to give him a belt, but I'm going to paint that on. In the meantime, I'm going to work on this stand so that I can glue him to this, and then he'll be a lot more stable. 2 tiny feet are not really enough for him to stand up on safely. So I'm going to give this a coat of the gesso, and this is a piece of basswood which I've had cut out, and I'm hoping it's going to look a little bit like snow. I will add some of that snow that I made earlier from the foam clay, but I'm going to give this a couple of coats just to make sure that it's all nice and sealed. And then while that is drying, I can paint the frog's eyes, and I'm going to paint that using some yellow acrylic paint. I'll add the black in a little bit later. Well, he's looking pretty good, but he needs a beard, and I've got a little bit of this faux fur, and I think it'll be perfect for his beard. So I've got just enough, and I'm going to place it there underneath his mouth, but it's a bit too wide, so I need to cut it off. I think about half of its width. Now this stuff is, you need to cut it in a special way. You can't just snip away. You do need to pull the fur back. If you were to just cut through this without parting the fur, you'd end up snipping through all of those little strands of fur and they'd all fall out. So I'm just separating it till I can see the webbing underneath. And once I can see that, it's like a netting. Once I've got all of that exposed, that is the part that I'm going to cut. Now I can just brush that fur back into place and I have a beard. I'm going to put some bookbinding glue along the edge. This is not only going to help me to stick this to the frog, but it will also seal that edge so that I don't lose any more fur. I'll just brush that in with my fingers. I'm only going to put a little bit on there, and then I can attach this underneath his mouth. I always find it hilariously funny when I see the Santas and some of the beards that they wear. Kids must know that they are fake. Everybody else can tell. Alright, there is my Santa frog. So now I'm going to stick him onto the stand. I'm going to use B7000 glue in combination with some resin. So I'm going to put a couple of blobs onto the feet. And then I can put him on the stand. Make sure that he stands where I want him to be. And that's going to take a while to set, so I'm just going to put a little bit of the UV bonding resin on the side, and that will hold him steady until all of that glue has set. So I'll put some blobs around the bottom of his feet, and it cures 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, I want to disguise those blobs so that you don't see them, so I'm going to put some glue around the bottom, spread that out, and then I can sprinkle that with my foam clay slow, and it will disguise any of the glue joins that are there. Add some more glue to the rest of it so that it doesn't look like he's stepped in the only pile of snow there. And it looks like I have just enough snow left to cover the rest of that. I'm going to leave this for about 20 minutes to dry, and then I can come back and add some black to his eyes. I'm using a black acrylic painter pen, and I'm just doing a dot and a line for the pupils. I'm also going to use the same black acrylic marker to draw the belt around the waist. So I made a little mistake. I need to give this a coat of acrylic varnish, so I shouldn't have put this beard on, otherwise that's going to get coated in the varnish too. So I'm just going to see if I can peel this off. Then I can take this outside, give this a couple of coats of varnish, and it'll be all ready for its final photos. And there he is, my Santa frog. I hope you've liked this video. If you have, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't. You can either click that QR code or the button underneath the video. It's free to you and it will really help my channel. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.